It would seem as though.
Hi, it's me.
Good morning.
Morning.
It's yet another day and another 50 cents. No, we didn't make that much. That would be good.
50 cents.
Not 50 cent. Not to be
Oh.
confused with 50 cent. We're here for another week of It Would Seem As Though, the podcast where we talk about anything, everything, and nothing.
Mostly nothing.
Yeah.
But today, something.
Something. Because it is still February.
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 I hate that word, by the way.
February?
The first R, yeah, I don't like the way it sounds. You know, growing up, we always said...
February.
February, yeah. So I think that sounds better than February. I think it's ugly.
Well, I think the problem is most people don't say February, or if they do, they sound like they have a mouthful of marbles.
February.
It's Febrew, like brew, like you're brewing a, you know, some beer. February.
I don't like it.
No?
No. February. Whether it's wrong...
All right, well, do you say often or do you say often?
Oh, it depends. In my head, I think I say often. But I will say often.
So you often say often?
You know, I do think I like often better than often.
I like often better, and I think, like you, I think that I say that more. And if I think about it, I will say it with pronounce the T because that is proper.
Yeah.
But
I also feel like it's the word like Wednesday. Wednesday.
Wednesday doesn't make any sense.
In my head, I say Wednesday.
Well, for spelling, I do. But no one says Wednesday.
No, because that's stupid.
That's stupid. But why is it spelled that way? Why are American words dumb?
Dumb as dumb can be. I don't know.
You know, it's like, who thought of this when they were spelling shit?
Old white men.
But I have little mnemonic devices to remember, and Wednesday is one that I remember how to spell Wednesday.
Yeah.
Conscience.
Yep.
Conscience.
Conscience, yeah.
You know, little dumb things and they taught us that in school. It's like,
yeah,
this is how you can remember these dumb things.
I'm into it.
Because spelling is dumb.
Spelling is stupid.
Right.
I get it.
Right.
Anyway, it's February. It's Black History Month.
Phlegm.
Oh, why?
Can you spell phlegm?
Phlegm?
Isn't that the dumbest spell?
It
Why?
sure is. Phlegm.
I get phlegm trying to even just say it like
yep,
that.
I hate it.
It is February, so it's still Black History Month.
Yes.
I was talking to one of my friends last night who was just catching up on the pod, listening to last week's pod. Last week or the week? No, it must have been last week. And she was saying, she sent me a text. She's like, I need to see a picture of Lil Fat.
Lil Fat,
Lil
yeah.
Fat. I know that if you listen all the time, you know that we had some dog drama and we lost a dog, and 3 days later got a new dog. 4 days later got a new dog, Lil Fat, who is now settling in.
Yep.
He has stopped destroying everything in the house. Because that was his thing, is like he would very happily bring me the next thing he was going to destroy.
Yep. See this one?
He was like,
I'm gonna
you see
kill
this toy? No, you don't. You know, because it didn't matter if it was soft or hard. So like Lego, that's good for chewing. Yep. Cables for computers, stuffed animals,
shoes,
paper, shoes. Right. He did completely destroy his dog bed. Oh, he also attempted
over the course of like 2 days.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
and he did try to destroy T's neck pillow, but he did successfully destroy one of our couch pillows.
Love it. Good for him.
But now that we have like chew toys all over the house, he's doing less.
Okay.
Destructo dog.
Yeah, and more.
But he's also the sweetest, cuddliest dog ever. However, we took him to the vet for his first checkup. Yeah. And he's 80 pounds. Wow. Which I was surprised because he looks smaller than our other pitty.
Yeah. How heavy is Mika?
Well, last time I had her weighed, and she's gotten a little fat because, you know, she likes to eat.
Yeah.
I don't understand that at all.
Same.
She was 65.
What? Okay.
But I think she's a little heavier than that now.
Yeah, a little bit.
Because, you know, she ate all the other dogs and stuff. Whatever. But he's 80 pounds and he's in good health.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love it.
But that's just our little doggy update for the day.
No Fat.
I was listening to one of the pods that I listen to, which is very Delta work, who's famous drag queen, was on Drag Race. Anyway, she has two podcasts, one with Raja,
Another very famous drag
Another
queen.
very famous drag queen called Very That, and then she branched off and did Very Delta. But she was talking to this queen today that I very much like. Her name is Mariah Balenciaga, and who is very well known in the ballroom scene, and we've talked about her before. And one of the things she said that I really, really liked is, yes, drag is for everyone, but the stage and the runway may not be. And I was like, oh, because that is the PC thing now. Is everyone's, well, drag is for everyone, anyone, all drag is valid. Drag is sure, but not everyone can perform.
No.
You know, and I've been watching this season of Drag Race, and as if I don't watch every season,
Right.
but
Just this one.
One of the girls who is on it, I'm sure strictly because she is TikTok famous. She's an identical twin, Sugar and Spice.
Sugar and Spice, yeah.
Well,
I almost said
Sugar
pepper
went
and
home.
salt.
Salt and pepper. Sugar went home. Spice is still there, and had to perform for I guess the second time. And it was like, you really are not a performer.
Yeah.
You're cute. You're funny.
Yep.
You're smart.
You're great,
but
girl,
performance
live
is really
performance. Yeah.
Because some people, I mean, I've known people, I've worked with people who have these great ideas and who are smart and whatever, but just don't have stage presence.
Yep, I got that.
And she just doesn't. So I agree with Mariah, the stage and the runway, not for everyone.
Well, I think there's a very big difference between like live performance and like taped, where you can, or
well, sure,
on TikTok where they
because you can
do
edit the shit out of it.
Because sometimes Sugar and Spice will do post their bloopers, which are really funny, and it takes them hours to do a video of them being in sync or whatever it is. And I think that's really cute and good for you, did a great job. But live performance, girl, don't do it.
No,
steer
no.
clear, mama.
And I know that throughout the years, because I am a master at my craft, and I'm not saying that to brag. It's just the truth. Maybe I'm saying to
brag a little bit,
but it
why
is
not?
the truth.
Yeah.
And I watch people who get up there and appear to not know their words, or are just a second behind, or and it's just not everyone can lip sync.
Yep.
And not everyone has stage presence.
No. And I want you to know that one thing that I always look for in any performance ever, not just drag, is because of you and being raised around it, is the emotionality people have when performing.
Yes,
is
absolutely.
it appropriate for what you're performing? Are you singing some ballad and you're all smiling like it's a fucking little pop beat,
Right.
There's
if you're doing Jennifer Holiday but you're doing Katy Perry's face, get out of here.
You're doing it wrong.
Get out of here with that. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see you grinning from ear to ear while you're doing a tragic love song or whatever.
Right, exactly.
And I do want to see you do tragic love songs.
Yeah.
I like ballads.
Me too.
I like the slow emote, but you have to be able to do it.
Yeah.
You have to be able to pull it off, and so many people can't. So many people should stick to Katy Perry, where it's just bubblegum and there's no deep feeling behind it. And no shade to Miss Perry.
All the shade to Miss Perry, I hate her. But you can do all your cute poppy choreography, right?
And you can do as many flips and kicks and bucks and death drops and clam slams and whatever.
Buck, bitch, yes.
Yeah, I don't care. Do all of it. Do all of it. But if you're doing it, and I'm telling you I'm not going by Jennifer Holiday, don't do a death drop in the middle.
No.
Drop dead. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, I mean, I know that probably sounds harsh, but I don't care. I've been literally watching drag performances since I was 18. Because I went to the Metropolis, which then went on to become the City Nightclub. And before it was the Metropolis, it was Mildred's Palace.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it wasn't a palace, but I never went there because I was young.
And who has a palace and their name is Mildred? Do you know what I mean? If I had a palace, I'm changing my name.
Right, if your name is Mildred, and you somehow
you live in
luck
a fancy
into a
shack,
palace,
bitch.
Right? It's now my name is Maleficent.
Girl, honestly.
Right. But the very first time I went to a show there, I was 18 years old and completely starstruck because I'm, this country girl who has just come into the city,
Oh my God.
On my horse and buggy, and me and my other Amish friends, and I was on Rumspringa.
Yeah, and she never went back.
And I never went back. Oh, God, no.
No, girl.
And so I was watching this show literally just like I was watching All the Stars in the World, because it was the coolest thing to me.
Yep.
Well, one of the queens was Miss Rosie Waters. who I'm sure it pained her when I would tell people that I got my start because of watching her, because I'm just like, don't pin this on me.
Yeah,
whatever.
you stupid.
But she did this rap song, and so I'm watching her like, is she singing?
Yeah.
Is she lip syncing? Because she didn't miss a beat, a breath,
Hell yeah.
nothing. And the look on her face was like, yes, I'm singing these words.
Yeah.
But,
Hell yeah.
you know, and from that point forward, I was like, that is what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and then I went and did it for the next 100 years. But actually, this year it'll be 40 years.
That's
that I've been
crazy.
performing. I know. And I will not do a song unless I feel like I can, you know, emote the proper feelings. Mm-hmm. Whether it's funny, whether it's sad, whether it's whatever.
Well, and you've done your own rap songs, girl.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, girl. It's funny, is where you saw Rosie Waters, is that this, because is the
it's
same
now
building?
Dante's.
Oh, okay. So the underage queer club has changed locations.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
So it changed. First, it was Mildred's Palace, and that was up closer into downtown, like Nordstrom area.
Okay.
Around there, and at least if I remember correctly, it was like closer to over there. But I never went there, so I don't know. And then it moved to where Dante's Inferno is now on like 2nd and Burn.
Okay. Yeah.
And Burnside. Sorry, no, not everybody lives in Portland. And then it moved to this place where it was for just a little hot minute up on like 12th.
Weird. Okay.
And then it moved back across Burnside to where it was for the next umpteen years. And then it was the City nightclub. And then the Escape.
It was the Rage before the Escape.
Was it?
Yeah.
And then Misfits.
Well, and here's why. Because the Escape was when I was a teenager.
Okay.
But the Rage, this is my story about the underage queer club, is I went there when I was like 5, remember?
Well, you were underage.
Yeah, because you took me. And this is one thing I'll say, is like, I never really thought how divergent or abnormal it was to start seeing drag at such a young age in the 90s. You know what I mean? And so I've also watched drag since for 150 years, because I'm 175. But for a long, long time. And so it's funny, because I was at the Rage. I was young, and I had a little, like, leopard print hat on and whatever, and you took me, and then you pointed to me in the crowd, and then I burst into flames and died because of embarrassment.
Yes, you did.
I was such a shy child that I thought I was going to die. And I may have. But
I think you did a little bit.
yeah, my soul just, like, left my body and came back. But yeah, it is very cute to me that you started when you were 18, which makes sense, especially for the time. But, like, I never really thought about how divergent it was.
How I was taking you to clubs at 5.
Yeah, and when I tell people, like, oh, I've been watching Rocky Horror Picture Show since I was 4 or 5 years old, people are all, what? Like, that's not an age-appropriate movie. I'm like, yeah, no shit. But I've been watching it forever.
But that ship has sailed long ago, so
Girl.
there's nothing I can do about that now.
What do you want me to do? But
She's already seen it.
Many times.
And how many times did you see Lust in the Dust?
Ooh, girl, that was one of my favorite movies.
It's a good movie.
I know. And again,
I haven't watched it in a
child.
really, really long time.
I watched it just a couple of years ago.
Okay.
You should.
By the
watch
way, it's one of Divine's last movies.
Oh, it's so.
And
good.
it was her.
What's her
I think
name?
it's her only movie where where she's not in a John Waters film.
Oh, right.
Because all of her other movies were John Waters films, and
Yeah.
this was not.
No.
And it was her and Tab Hunter and Lainey Kazan.
Lady Kazan. That's what I was thinking of.
Yes,
Mhm.
and it's
Brilliant.
terrible and wonderful and brilliant, and I love
Oh,
it.
so good.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
not our point of the story, but
No, but no, because we started talking about somehow I don't know we got really because of Mariah saying not the stage and the runway
if
are
you
not for
ugly, stay
everyone.
home or something.
Well, if you don't have stage presence,
Yeah.
stay off the stage. However, I don't think people who don't have it know it.
Right. Oh no.
I don't think they do. And I remember one time when I was working at Darcel's, this queen who worked there, who hateful, God rest her soul. Anyway, she was saying to me that she was saying a nice thing wrapped in a not nice thing.
Love
Because
that.
I was rehearsing for the show, and she was like, "You really just can't be chorus girl. You can't be in the background because you steal all the focus." Because you have so much stage presence that you can't help but look at you when you're on stage.
Yeah.
And even though you're doing all the same moves as the rest of the girls, it doesn't work.
Yeah. So get the fuck off my
And
stage.
then she said, unlike this other queen who's in the show, whose name I will not say, she's like, she likes 7-Up. Never had it, never will. And I was like, wow! It's accurate.
That's so funny to me. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, girl, you do what you do.
I know.
You can't help that you're born for greatness.
I know.
I know we're not talking about drag, but I will say that people who perform who don't know that they can't perform and they should not perform, I think for them, oftentimes it could be it can be something of like a feat just to get on stage and just to perform.
Yeah.
And so then by doing that, they opened this whole floodgate of things they can do, or they should be on stage, which those aren't the same thing. Being able to get on stage and being able to perform are different.
I agree. And, I had many people in my show over the years who were not amazing performers.
Sure.
Or who maybe that really wasn't, their gig or whatever you want to say. Mm-hmm. But I'm sorry, my dog's over there hacking up a lung or something. But you're right. It is quite a feat just to get up on stage. It is something to put yourself all up in geesh, get in full drag, and then put yourself out there.
Yeah.
Because you are really putting yourself out there. You perform in any capacity.
Yeah.
And people are going to have something to say about it. People are going to criticize. Good God. Little Fat.
So we left the dogs out, and let me tell you, they are not loud or distracting whatsoever.
So Little Fat is sitting right next to my feet, chewing on a rubber bone as loudly as he fucking can. I'm like, little dog. You can probably hear it.
I know, honestly. This is the most chaotic episode. Well, maybe not.
No, last week was the most chaotic episode with just dogs and my mother and all the things and just everything. It was like, good God.
Yeah.
And then I thought we were never going to get through it.
Yeah, it took like 2 hours.
It did. It literally did. And it usually takes us, just a tiny bit over what you see time-wise. We might pause when someone comes in and out the room, but that's usually it.
Yeah.
But last week, whew,
girl,
I was
it was
like,
a full-time
is it still
job.
the same day? Ugh. So we do actually have a topic today.
Yes, we do.
And because I thought it would be interesting to talk about, since it is Black History Month, to talk about some of the people that you will certainly never learn about in school.
Right.
Now, I get it that all y'all listening to our podcast are out of school. But these are the people that won't ever be taught about.
Right.
For one reason or another. Maybe they're not influential enough, or they, for whatever reason. But people who are interesting, And the first person, and this actually, I got a little bit of her story listening to another podcast. But the first person I want to talk about is Tituba.
Okay.
Now, on Wikipedia, she's listed as Tituba Indian. Why? Because they don't know her name. Tituba came to America from Barbados, where she was brought here as a slave. And Tituba is the first person, and the only, as far as I know, the only person of color to be accused of being a witch. She was the very first person accused, and unlike everyone else, she was like, yeah.
What about it?
I'm a witch. Because witch, by the way, wasn't even a thing in her culture. But her practices, which the uptight white people called witchcraft, were all things that she practiced. Where she brewed potions and stuff for like home remedies. Where she was a midwife. All the things that she did was like home medicine and
she was
just
a
whatever.
Healer.
She was a healer.
Yeah.
And so when they said, did you do these things? She's like, yes. What's your problem?
Yeah.
I don't get it. What
you be doing this. That's what happened.
Right. Well, but she's also, after they said, are you a witch? She goes, yes, I am. But so are these two girls because I've taught them everything I know. I've been teaching them my ways. And so obviously they're witches too.
Yeah.
Well, she then ended up going to jail.
But
she was a witness for these other people, but she was never prosecuted for whatever reason. She spent a year in jail, and her case was dismissed in May of 1693, and they don't know what happened to her beyond that. Now, I'm assuming since she was a slave, the reason she probably wasn't killed is because she was someone's property. And they were like, you can't kill, my person.
Right.
Because
don't do that.
who's going to do the work on my farm or whatever,
Who's going to raise my children?
Now, if it was like, well, you can kill my wife, but I didn't pay money for her.
No.
So.
And she's my property too, but she's fucking useless.
She expects everyone else to do the work. God.
Okay, so I love that. And when I was doing my research, I found people in history as well, closer to contemporary time. But I wanted specifically to look up, the occult practitioners, the witches, the mystics that were black. And so when I was looking up in the United States, one woman came up named Mary Black. And she was around the same time as Tituba. And she was a slave of African descent, and she was in Nathaniel Putnam's household.
Okay.
And he was the Putnam family was the family that was accused of witchcraft during the Salem witch trials, like one of the families, right? And Thomas Putnam, the nephew of this family, was one of the accusers, but he didn't really believe most of it, right?
No, he just wanted his family's property.
Exactly. So Mary Black, was arrested, she was indicted and imprisoned, but she never went to trial as well. And she was released eventually months later. And she went back to Nathaniel's household. So the man, his family was accused. She went back to his household. So clearly he also didn't really believe she was, doing witchcraft. But there were 3 slaves, Tituba, Mary Black, and this woman named Candy, who were the first 3 black women who were accused of witchcraft. But Tituba was the first. Here's a little tidbit that I love. It doesn't ever really get into why she was just accused because the Putnams were accused, and she was their help. Something that we're going to find beautifully interesting. Do you know that, your 9th great-grandparents and my 10th great-grandparents, who were Sarah and Edward Bishop, who were accused of witchcraft? Well, Miss Mary Black was arrested at the same time that they were arrested, and they were all in prison together at the same fucking time.
Nice.
Is that not so funny?
That is cool.
Oh my god, and all these other people who I don't know anything about. But yeah, all of them were arrested for high suspicion of being witches. And nice. I'm like, what a cute little connection. They're just in a cell with all these other people.
With our 9th and 10th great grandparents hanging out, being like, what?
I know. And then I look them up again just because I think it's so funny and how everyone just thought they were crazy and how Old Man Bishop would just beat people with a stick to be like, you curse now?
What's kind of funny about that to me is my second great grandfather, my great grandfather, my mother's grandfather, so her mom's dad.
Okay.
So Grandpa Tiffany.
Yeah.
Used to do the same.
Really?
Yeah. He walked with 2 canes.
Okay.
Because he had pretty severe issues with his back and his legs.
Right.
But that did not stop him from using his cane to beat folks when they caused him grief. And so he would, I guess you lean on one and use the other to whack folks. Girl. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So maybe it runs
and you have
family.
You have that much reach, you're gonna hit some people.
You don't have to get that close. Knock him over that. And he was a little man.
I'm about it.
He was not a very big man. His wife was a larger woman.
I'm also about that. That's so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. So witches in the family.
Right. Shocking.
Right.
Isn't that just a shocker?
Yeah,
I can't believe it.
Can't believe it.
One of the other things that I found really interesting, and this is not a person, but one of the things because what I was looking up is things that you won't necessarily learn in school, right? Mm-hmm. About Black history. Well, one of the things that I learned was that during World War II, the U.S. implemented a number of xenophobic measures to limit the success of the Jewish refugees.
Right.
Asylum seekers escaping Nazi Germany. Finding a job was difficult for them.
Right.
Of course. Mm-hmm. And they had very little money. And they had to prove they could support themselves to be allowed into the country. Well, if you don't have a job and you've just, literally fled from the country where you're being tortured and killed and whatever, you probably don't have a whole lot of money in your pocket.
No.
However, the historically black universities and colleges worked to hire as many Jewish people as they could. Excuse me. So they worked to hire, then saved the lives of 50 Jewish scholars at Howard University, in D.C. and Tougaloo College of Mississippi, and they were brought in to teach. And they also brought in, obviously, their families and stuff.
Yeah.
So a whole lot of Jewish refugees who were being turned away were actually taken on by the historically black colleges and universities.
Yeah.
And One of the things I find interesting is how many people don't even realize that there are colleges and universities been around for a very, very long time that are historically black. They're very prestigious.
Yeah.
It's not like the early education stuff where we learn where it's like, well, these black children get to go to this crappy little school because that's all the government's going to pay for.
Yep.
A little one-room shack with a book that they have to all share. These are all very high and very prestigious colleges.
Yep.
And so the fact that they did this, I thought that was pretty amazing.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what marginalized and oppressed people should do, is help take care of other marginalized and oppressed people. Look, if all the marginalized people stood together, girl, there'd be more of us than there would be of them,
Well, and I think about the fact that so many people, so many Jewish folks were sent back to their death because America was all like, oh no, that's too many people to let in. And it wasn't until it got really, really bad and, millions of people had died that America was like, well, I guess we better go.
Oh, God.
What if we have to? I guess we're going to go fight.
Busy.
I know, but it was like, they waited until the 11th hour to do something.
Well, yes, shocking. Welcome to America.
I know.
This is not have to do with Black history, but the Holocaust, full stop, is upsetting. Every part of it, every single part of it's upsetting. One thing that rubbed salt in the wound of how upsetting it was is that after the camps were liberated, a lot of these countries, like European countries, specifically Germany, there was like anti-queer laws, anti-gay laws. Mm-hmm. So the queer people who survived the camps were then taken to prison. They were in prison.
Oh, nice.
Isn't that just like, what? Like, they just survived one of the most horrific things in human history. Now you're imprisoning them because of their queer identity.
Yikes.
Right? Horrible.
That is horrible.
Anyway, so let's move on. The next person I want to talk about is, her name is Rebecca Lee Crumpler, and she was born in 1831, and she passed away in 1895. So she 64, right? So she was the first, but okay, so the 1831 to 1895, there's a good portion of that time that slavery was still a thing, right?
So, half of her life.
Yeah. And so she was the first Black American woman doctor. And she studied at the New England Female Medical Center. And here's the thing. She studied there in 1864, which is still before the Civil War was over.
Yeah.
And so I think, like, a lot, people who get educated, specifically marginalized people who got educated during times of such horrific genocidal abuses, like, bitch, right. You had resilience to your core. But she focused on the care of children and kids and people of color who couldn't afford to pay medical bills. And then, obviously, because she was Black and a woman during the time of the Civil War, she fought sexism and racism the entire way. And in 1883, she published a book of medical discourses in 2 parts. So it was very inclusive medical writing. Sorry, I just shook all my chains. But yeah, it was very inclusive because it involved women, children, men, and people of color. It was very well-rounded. So I think that's, first of all, not only to be like the first Black American woman doctor, but to also have gotten it in a time when a huge majority of the people, even people in the North, didn't consider you technically a human. They didn't think you were a person.
Right. Well, and it was also, in many places, it was illegal to even teach Black people how to read.
Right, because they could learn, and then they could band together. They could communicate to each other.
Right, exactly. So, snaps for her. That's awesome.
Yes, ma'am,
and,
right?
You think about becoming a doctor and what a challenge it is anyway.
Yeah.
Because, now,
right, in
modern times, becoming a doctor is very hard. It takes years and years and tons of money and whatever. So, a woman, first of all, a woman. But then a Black woman.
A
woman. In that time, it's a complete uphill battle the entire way.
Right.
And then for people to, accept her as a doctor and to go to her as a doctor, it's like all of those things would have been a challenge. So that's amazing. And it's very impressive.
And I do wonder how relieving it was, though, for Black folk and people of color to see that there was somebody in the medical profession who was in, like, you know, the white-dominated belief about healing, who was a Black person who wanted to help them free of charge, you know? Because obviously there were enough healers who were women and men of color, right?
Yeah, of
but
course.
to be, like, a doctor, this, you know, the science of healing, essentially, I think... how relieved would you feel to see a woman being... And you're like, oh, holy shit, there's a Black woman. There's someone who looks like me.
Right. Well, and traditionally and culturally, there's a huge mistrust of the medical profession, you know, especially in the Black community. And specifically because they have that, you know, ridiculous beliefs that somehow Black people feel pain differently at lesser, you know, intensities than white people, because that's how, you know, garbage they told themselves so that they could get away with treating them terribly. It's like, well, you know, yeah, we beat them with a stick, but it doesn't hurt them like it would hurt us. Yeah, it absolutely does. You know, whatever. And so there's that huge mistrust. So I imagine to have a Black doctor, that would have been huge.
Right. And speaking of, there's obviously many reasons why there's so much mistrust between the Black community and the medical community for, you know, all of the horrible experiments they've done and called it science, like, you know, infecting people with syphilis, you know? But there's...
At the Tuskegee University.
Yes. Yeah. And there is a man his name is James Marion Sims, and he is touted by everyone in the medical profession to be the father of gynecology. But he was also, like, touted for developing the first surgical technique to repair a fistula. You know what that is? Where there's like a hole between linings within your vagina. And so he did that. Good for him. And he created the speculum. Okay? But he did most of his work on Black enslaved women.
Experimenting on Black women.
And never gave them any sort of, like, sedative. Never, like, dulled their pain.
He was a monster.
Because he wanted to see what they felt. And didn't think that they could actually feel anything. And, like, brought people in, like, obviously, you know, like, it's a show. Like, let me show you what I found. Right. So, that right there. So, to be able to find a Black doctor, especially in that time, like, because he started doing this shit he was born in 1813, so he was probably close to this time when he was doing all these horrific things to people, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I've heard about him, and just gross. Just the whole idea just makes me sick. So one of the other people that I found particularly interesting, and I actually had heard of her before, was Claudette Colvin. Claudette Colvin was a 15-year-old who refused to give up her seat on a bus to a white person. Months before Rosa Parks.
Yep.
And Rosa Parks did this, you know, yes, very famously, but Rosa Parks became kind of the face of that movement because they found her to be kind of a more palatable to the general public because she was this nice, respectable older lady. Where, I'm not old, I mean, because she was, you know, but she was not a child. Whereas Claudette Colvin was 15 and pregnant and not really the image they were looking for. She was escorted off the bus by 2 police officers and arrested and fined. But she went on to be one of the 4 women in the Browder versus Gale court case, which ultimately overturned bus segregation laws in the state of Alabama.
Yes, hell yeah.
So she's not the one anybody talks about, but she really kind of got it started, and she was part of the movement and the law case to get the whole shit overturned. So snaps to this little 15-year-old girl.
Hell yeah.
You know.
Could you imagine? Me at 15 grow up and like, okay, you want to step on me? Fine, I don't care. Just don't look at me.
God.
You want to throw me off the moving bus? I'm into it.
You know, as I was reading about her, it got me thinking about, you know, we talk an awful lot about what side of history do you want to be on? You know, do you want to be on the side of history where you're that hysterical woman screaming at little
Ruby Bridges?
Ruby Bridges, you know, because that photograph has been around forever and everyone has seen it, and you're that psychotic bitch who's standing behind her screaming at a 6-year-old.
Yep.
Do you really, is that the history you want? Because if you think, Ruby Bridges is still around. She's not that old.
Right.
You know, and I'm sure, I don't know if that woman's still around, but do you want to be that woman?
Do you want to be the descendant of that woman?
Or do you want to be the bitch who, you know, wrongly accused Emmett Till.
Oh, I was about to go there. And she...
Also still alive.
Still alive, right. And
never faced anything.
And people today are like, lock her up. Put her in prison. I don't care how fucking old she is. I don't care that she's sick. Do you know what happened to that little boy?
Yeah.
Like, she deserves to go to prison.
Yeah.
She deserves worse, but I'm of a different
Well,
belief.
it doesn't matter, though, because she did something so horrific.
Yeah.
And then what was done to that boy. Because he was a boy. He wasn't even a grown man. No. He was like, what, 15?
Something like that.
And he was... Well, if you want, you can look at pictures.
Look it up. We don't need to look it up.
It's disgusting.
Yep.
But I think about that. It's like, which side of history do you want to be on? Exactly. I want to be on the side of history where I am marching with a Black Lives Matter sign. Or I am, whatever it is, where people are going, well, you know, this old white lady was at least trying to do something.
Right.
You know, for the betterment of the world, as opposed to... Because, I mean, I've been in marches before. And not just that, because back in the day... did marches for like AIDS vigils and the different things where we're trying to get shit like that overturned, the laws that they were trying to put in place against queer people or against, you know, marginalized people again. That's how I want to be remembered. I don't want to be remembered as some psychotic, crazy person who was like
yelling at
other people are trying to get rights and I don't like it.
Right. Well, and here's the thing too is to stand in solidarity with people of color, with Black people, Indigenous people, queer people, doesn't always have to be going to a protest or marching or fighting back in that way. But saying something when something needs to be said, you know, uplifting marginalized voices, buying from marginalized businesses, like doing those types of things are how we create like equity, right? And how we push the everyday narrative, and it doesn't have to be everyone banding together and marching.
Right.
It can be you telling your racist grandpa to fuck off and what he's saying is stupid. And if he doesn't want to come to whatever, then he shouldn't come. Or stopping some ignorant bullshit when you see people being, you know, harassed for being queer or Black or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's those things that, you know, that person that you stood up for will remember that. You know what I mean? It builds a solidarity amongst people, a camaraderie. And we don't all have to go through the same thing, but we all should understand that we all have gone through something.
Right.
And so stand up and be a part of that person's story.
But also understand at the same time that you are not the great white savior.
No.
Because also, people don't need you to save them. Mm-mm. However, if they see that you're at least on their side, they're going to be like, okay, well, this person walks the walk and talks the talk, does the whole thing, as opposed to just like, no, I'm an ally.
Yeah.
But as long as it doesn't inconvenience me or make me look bad, then, you know, I'll... Nope. Sometimes you gotta, you know, ruffle some feathers and piss some people off, and that's just life.
Yep, it sure is. Yeah. Anyway.
Your turn.
Oh. Okay. I'm going to talk about... You might... people sometimes actually learn of her, but I'm going to talk about her anyway. Her name's Elizabeth Freeman. That's what she changed it to, because her birth name no one really knew. She was born in 1744 and died in 1829. She was enslaved, and so they called her Mum Bet. Anyway.
Oh, I read about her.
Yeah, but that probably wasn't the name her mother wanted to get.
Oh, I'm sure not.
So she was enslaved, but she filed a legal challenge citing the Constitution and the promise of liberty. And she won. She was the first woman to file the lawsuit for the right of freedom, and it prompted Massachusetts, and she did this in Massachusetts, it prompted Massachusetts to outlaw slavery.
Because what I had read, it was that she actually was somewhere, she was in a public place, and she heard somebody reading the Constitution, and she was like, wait a minute.
What'd you just say? Say it one more time.
All men are created, and freedom, liberty, you know, is a right, you know. And so, I was reading that just the other day, and I thought, good for her.
Well, and what's great is
and amazing that anybody listened to her or that she won.
Well, and Massachusetts outlawed it because more people were like, what'd she say? And then they went and they started to sue. But then she, you know, lived her life as she had her own house. She was a domestic worker, a midwife, a healer, and a nurse. So she did all the things.
So she was a witch.
She was a witch girl. So then she was just executed for being a witch. She wasn't. But
no, I know. Well, and it's so funny because I was listening to a podcast the other day about witchcraft. Well, I was listening to Jinx Monsoon.
Okay, love it.
And she's a witch. And what's interesting is the witch that people talk about, most people talk about is, some magical, mythical creature. When witches really, for the most part, are healers or people who make their home remedies or people who are like, I'm brewing up this special tea to help you with whatever is ailing you. Yep. That was all considered witchcraft.
Oh, all of it.
Yep. And so...
Yeah, any sort of like...
People have really wrong ideas of what being a witch is.
Definitely. And I mean, because... Well, this is a whole different podcast. Yeah, you're right. But being a witch can mean a lot of things, right? But most definitely it was like using natural kind of plant medicines to heal things. But that was what it started. I mean, people did, like divination where they tried to understand the future and whatever. But yeah, it's not some woman around a fucking cauldron who's like warty and hooked nose. You know what I mean?
Right. So the next person I want to talk about is the woman who is responsible for GPS.
Love it. Okay.
And, black woman.
Yeah. Stop.
Dr. Gladys West. She's literally, her technology has become GPS and digital maps and all of that stuff. She was a pioneering mathematician whose calculations were instrumental in using satellite data to determine precise locations. In 1956, she began working at a naval surface warfare center in Virginia. That's a lot of words all at once, and sometimes words are hard. And she was the only black woman and only one of 3 black employees.
Crazy.
So she began collecting and processing data from satellites, using the information to put together precise models of the Earth's shape. And she became lauded for her work and was nominated for a reward by her department in 1979. And after that, she was named the manager for the first satellite project that could remotely sense oceans, known as the CSAT radar I'm not sure how to say that. Altamari project.
Okay.
But it was her work that... Oh, stop it. It's like my page is like being weird. But it was her work that was the basis for all GPS stuff now. Yeah. So pretty damn impressive.
I know. And
go for you.
No one knows how to get anywhere anymore without GPS.
Oh,
so
no.
She live on.
But it wasn't until 2018
that
she got any recognition.
Of course. Of course.
Well, because 1, she a woman, and 2,
she black. Even those times, right? Like, because what year was it that she was like?
Well, she started working on this stuff in the 50s.
Right. Okay.
And it was in the late 70s that she was rewarded for her work.
Okay, so in the 50s though, and before Civil Rights Act, girl, and you're a black woman working in a very white man field, like how scary.
But you think about the women who are talked about in the movie Hidden Figures.
Yes.
They were the only black women working for NASA. And they're real women, but it was 3 black women working in an all-white, mostly male-dominated field. Because they were mathematicians and scientists and whatever. It's like, those women were impressive as hell.
Yep. And one of my favorite scenes in anything is from that, where, like, is it John Glenn or Buzz Aldrin? I can't remember. He's going to space, but he's like, I'm not going to take off unless the woman, the girl, is what he called her, until she signs off on it, because all the white men had said, no, your landing coordinates are good. And he's like, no, I want her to check it. So she checked it, did it rapidly, and it's like a file of fucking math equations. And she gave the thumbs up, and he was very happy and like loves her. And I thought that was really precious. But it was like, see, white men, even with like a fucking building full of like some of the smartest white men, that black woman outsmarted you, bitch.
Yeah. One of the things I found interesting, and this isn't a specific person, although part of it is kind of, is that after the abolition of slavery, a lot of those people specifically in the South became in demand for to be cowhands. And so people don't think of black cowboys.
No.
It's like that's not something that's on most people's radar. But when Texas joined the Confederacy, many slave owners went off to fight in the Civil War, leaving behind, these black men to care for their cattle. Well, once they were freed, they still needed men to care for their cattle, and so there became this huge group of black cowboys.
I love it.
And it started in Texas. And here's the part that I found super interesting, is it is believed that the idea of the Lone Ranger was inspired by a black man named Bass Reeves.
I love that.
Born in slavery, Reeves escaped his position of servitude and eventually became a U.S. deputy marshal, known for his excellent skills as a marksman and for riding a silver horse. And so they believe that that was the basis of the Lone Ranger.
With those last two examples, I feel like big change can happen if you, I don't know, listened to black women. Or if you listen to marginalized voices, right?
Yeah.
Like, how much more could you learn if you had a different perspective? And that makes me think my next person is Mark Dean. He was born in 1957 and he's still alive today. He is a trailblazer in computing, so like personal computers and all of that. When he was a child, he reassembled an entire tractor with his father without like directions. What? So he studied engineering. So he was able to go. He went to college and studied engineering, and then got hired right away by IBM. And then he developed 3 of the original 9 patents for IBM. So he developed a third of them by himself, which is crazy to me. So 2 of them are the first color computer he did, and the second one was the first gigahertz chip, which is 1 billion calculations in a second. So this man, IBM is a massive company.
Oh yeah,
we have we have a lot of what we have because of IBM, and so he originated some major things that we still use today.
That's amazing.
That's amazing, right? But of course, being a black man in the, a science field, it can't be easy. That's why when we think about now, there's a lot of STEM projects, which is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, right? There's a big push to get young black children into STEM and teaching them about it sooner, so that way there'll be more of a diverse crowd of people in those fields, which I'm all about.
Because I know at the school, at the elementary school, they were really pushing the girls to get into STEM programs.
Yes.
Yeah. And our school's district out here, we have the most diverse school district in Oregon.
Yes, right.
So it's a lot of girls who are not white.
Right. Well, and I've been to school pickup with you at every school they've been to, and the population of the students is very diverse.
Yeah.
And it isn't just like a sea of white people, which is, oftentimes. And,
well, it was certainly our childhood.
Oh, definitely.
A sea of white people.
Yeah, but I mean, even in Oregon and in Portland, that is predominantly white. It is. It is nice to be in an area that is diversified, more so. Yeah. Don't gentrify here, fucking Portland. Stay where you are.
Stop it. So this lady, I found this kind of interesting because this is something that probably most people don't even really know what it is, modern folk.
Yeah.
But Mary Kenner she is the inventor of the modern day maxi pad.
Hey, yeah. I love that.
But it started out with a sanitary belt because it was...
right.
Yeah,
okay.
It was the whole thing. I mean, it wasn't as easy as it is now. But it was... When she created this stuff, it was illegal for black women to apply for patents. Not surprising.
No.
But she did not let that deter her. She continued to perfect her sanitary belt, and decades later was able to patent it and several other inventions as well. And although she never gained wealth or recognition for her many inventions, she is still the only African-American woman in history to file 5 patents that solved real problems for women. So, pretty impressive, I would say. So, you go, Mary.
Okay. Okay. Oh, I'm going to talk about Moms Mabley.
I love her, by the way.
Agreed.
Have you ever seen any of her stand-up?
Yeah, I watched it on the YouTube.
Okay.
One time I did, for class sometime, one of my classes had us look into black comedians, and she was one of them, which was interesting.
Well, and there's I was going to say documentary, but it's not. It's a bio movie of her life where she's played by Whoopi Goldberg.
Okay.
And one of the things I found very interesting is her stage persona, nothing like her real person.
Really?
No, because she comes off as being, this kind of because she didn't have teeth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, part of her thing was that. But she also talked an awful lot about sex.
Okay.
But she also, I mean, just the way she came off was this kind of, I'm not sure how to explain it, but it's like when you saw her in real life, she was this very smart, because she wrote all of her own material.
Yeah.
But she also knew kind of what it would take for a black woman to get into that field.
Yeah, yeah.
So she was an amazing lady.
She played to her crowd.
What you got?
She was born in 1894. She passed away in 1975. She was a
That's a good long life.
Yes, girl. She was a comedian. Her born name was Loretta Aiken. And she broke into comedy, which, as you can imagine, was hard to do as a woman and as a black woman. But she was able to do it. Her life is very tragic, to be honest. Her parents died when she was very young. She got pregnant when she was 14, 15. Pregnant 2 times from violence and capital R word, you know?
Yeah.
And both her children were taken away. After this happened, so at 14, she joined the African American vaudeville circuit, and that's where she started, was in vaudeville, which I think is really great. So she was the first woman on stage at the Apollo Theater.
Love that.
And she was invited back so many times to perform that now she holds the record for performing at the Apollo more than any other performer. And then she was she had parts in movies specifically for her.
Yeah.
She had comedy albums, and a lot of them got gold status. And she was on TV, so she was this.
Yeah, because she did
actor.
she did the talk shows of the day, God, why am I blanking on everybody?
I don't know.
Oh, God, I don't know. But she was on a lot of those talk shows.
The dementia.
The dementia. It probably is. I'm old.
Yeah, girl, I know. But yeah, so I love that, comedy is one of my favorite things, and to, learn about this woman who played a niche, you know what I mean? She played this caricature of a person that wasn't really her.
Right.
But did it in a way that she would gain acceptability, and then to be rewarded and successful, I don't know, I think that's really great,
Well, and traditionally, the Apollo Theater crowd is a tough crowd.
Okay.
Because if you watch the old Live at the Apollo, if you're not amazing, they will boo you off stage.
Oof.
And the fact that she was on there so much and became such a beloved character, I love that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Right? Good for her.
Kudos to her.
Yeah.
One of the other people I want to talk about, so last week or the week before, talked about a documentary that's called Is That Black Enough for You? Mm-hmm. And it's about specifically the history of black cinema. Okay. Because until really the blaxploitation films of the 60s and 70s, there was no such thing as black cinema.
Right.
There were movies where you would have a black person. And what I loved, I heard this in this yesterday, was one of the things they said was, when you see a white person putting on dress, fancy dress, with tie and tails, whatever, it's because they're going to an event. And if you saw a black person doing it, it's because they were a servant.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, I never thought of that, but that's exactly correct as to how it would have been. Well, so this is all talking about how black people were then able to become the lead characters, the romantic interest, all of those things. Yeah. And I know we talked about blaxploitation films last year, but one of the things I found interesting is black horror films did specifically not exist because the thought was, what on earth can we do that is going to scare black people because of the shit they've already been through? Dracula's going to be scary. They were slaves.
Yeah.
Zombies are going to be scary. Please, they were beaten by white people. The Klan and what have you. That's way more terrifying than some fictional thing. So it wasn't until this time, when Blackula came out.
Yeah,
where,
I love Blackula.
Where you got to have this lead character who was a smart, strong black character who was not marginalized in any way. Yeah. And, and it was like, okay.
I love that. Hell yeah.
Well, one of the people I knew who she was prior to this was Suzanne DePass. Suzanne DePass worked at Motown for many years.
Okay.
She got her in. She worked at a club in Harlem called the Cheetah Club. But she was friends with Cindy Birdsong, who was one of the members of the Supremes. So she was friends with Cindy Birdsong, who replaced Florence Ballard in the Supremes. And so that was kind of her in with Motown. And so she started there, and she dressed the Jackson 5 for one of their tours. But one of the things that I found interesting is she's the first black woman to be nominated for an Oscar for screenwriting in 1972. The next black woman who was nominated for an Oscar for screenwriting was in 2017.
Jesus Christ.
It's like, come on. But she was nominated for the multiple nominated film, Lady Sings the Blues, which, is the story of Billie Holiday.
Yep.
Played at the, in that movie by Diana Ross. Brilliantly, who was also nominated for an Oscar. Didn't win.
Right.
Should have.
Agreed.
And two women were nominated, black women were nominated for acting Oscars that year, which the other one was, of course, the legendary Cicely Tyson. But she also didn't win, and she should have. But
I love Cicely Tyson.
one of the things I found, so Mario Van Peebles, he and his father, Melvin, I believe. Anyway, both directors, both in show business. Melvin did a lot of the blaxploitation films. But Mario was saying when he was young, he didn't like going to movies where the black character, like Cicely Tyson in Sounder, which is what she was nominated for an Oscar for, are victimized characters. He didn't like that, and so he wouldn't go to those movies, or if he did go, he just wouldn't enjoy them. He's like, because I see this in real life, I want to go for the person is the hero, or is the badass, or is the whatever. And he said it wasn't until he was an adult and he went back and rewatched some of these movies, he's like, okay, I can see the importance of this movie. I can really kind of get the layered, performances and all of that stuff. He's like, but as a kid, I wanted to see black people, kicking ass and taking names.
Yeah,
I didn't want to see them being kicked.
No.
Which, if that is your life, or that is your history, I totally get that.
Yeah.
It makes sense. And so often, that is what people think about. It's like, oh, we're going to watch movies where the person is the slave, or the black person is the whatever. It's like where they're getting some sort of abuse that they have to overcome.
Right.
And it's like, why can't they just be the romantic lead, or the villain,
of
or
course.
Or the hero, or the whatever.
Something other than just the victim.
Right. And it's 1939 is considered by many people to be the best year in American cinema because of Gone with the Wind, The Wizard of Oz, and many other films. But for black folk, no. Because Gone with the Wind, it's about a plantation in the South in the Civil War and all of that stuff. And, it's like,
and there's Mammy. Didn't she win an Oscar though? Yes,
she did.
Yeah,
she did. Hattie McDaniel is the first black woman to ever win an Oscar, which I know we talked about, last year when we did this. But they didn't expect her to win, and they didn't even want her to come to the awards ceremony.
I know.
And they sat her, in the rafters because it was like, well, she's not going to get anything, so we'll be nice and let her sit over there.
She had to rappel down from the roof.
Pretty much. Yeah. And when she went and accepted her award, people were just like, there's a black woman in here.
Yeah.
But one of the things she said, and it's a very, it seems for the time to be kind of normal-ish, but when you hear it now, it's like, ugh. Because one of the things she said was, I just want to be a credit to my race.
Yeah.
And you think about that now, it's like, wow.
How sad, though, you know?
Yeah. But she was an amazing actress.
Yeah.
And she was a, cool lady. So, I think that was all kind of that I had on my list.
I just had Black Mystics, but their stories aren't that interesting. But one thing I did think was very interesting was from the Bible, the Bible, which it's chock full of black people.
Yeah.
But one of the three magi...
Because there are no white people in the Bible.
No. But one of the three magi is Balthazar, so he's Saint Balthazar. And he has, in most depictions where most religious figures are white, he's always been depicted as black. And he's the saint who gave Jesus, or the wise man who gave Jesus murder. Anyway, but yeah, so I thought that was interesting. And then the other thing I thought I've talked about this before, but often like Greek gods are portrayed as white, but in Greek culture that wasn't really a thing. You were seen as you lived, and you were strong, and you did, you were worthy if you had darker skin, because it meant you went out in the world. You went out.
Well, that makes sense.
And for men, you went out to battle, and for women, you went to go live life, right? And only race and the skin color of gods in lots of mythology aren't really ever mentioned. There's two people in the Greek pantheon, and it's Aphrodite and Athena. So, not Athena. Hera. So the two bitches who never left the castle, who are like pretty goddesses, right? But everyone else, it's to be assumed that they had darker skin because they went out and explored the world and went to battle, right? So they do mention that. Usually it's like sunburnt, but they're not white, right? So they're not like red. That's not the sun brazen. They were supposed to be of color. And again, one of the reasons is because closer to the sun, it's Olympus.
Sure.
So there's a lot of theories that black folk, or the Olympian gods, were black, which would make sense to me.
Yeah.
Because, again, where were the white people? But anyway.
White people.
You have white people. But yeah, so I always think that's interesting, too. Because they didn't associate blackness with what, in contemporary time, is considered with, every awful adjective you can think of,
Right.
So I think that's interesting. People need to do better. And I don't know, read it for what it means and not for what your other people's interpretation is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it'd also be good if you read a thing, and if it doesn't mention the skin color, don't assume they're white.
Ooh.
Because
Yeah.
I think because of our upbringing and just the way the world is, especially America, you read a book, and if it doesn't say, they're tawny whatever skin,
they have russet skin,
or they're ebony skin, you just assume they're white.
Yeah. And when I realize that, though, I now am so hyper aware of that I thought before that every character was white. So now reading is it feels a little more interesting because I just don't assume. I don't know. I assume I'm just blind and I'm talking to a person, because I don't assume every character is white anymore when reading, which is weird to me.
Well, and I've kind of gone the opposite direction. I now assume everybody's black.
Yeah.
I'll be reading a book and I'm like, for my entertainment pleasure, everyone, unless it says, everyone's black.
I love that.
Because, why not?
Why not?
About
it, girl.
Well, and one of the books that I read, and I realize we're over time, but I don't care. One of the books that I read, The Bluest Eye, everyone in the book is black, pretty much. Yeah. And they don't have, it isn't pointed out. And my black friend who has black skin, it's like, they're all black.
Yeah.
You don't need to point, we get it. And the fact that it was written by a black woman, she didn't feel the need to say, dear reader, everyone in this story is black.
Right, exactly.
And so whatever. But
yeah, I get it.
Yeah, so happy Black History Month. Go out and make an effort. Google black people in history. Google black people who made history.
Yep.
And you will learn some stuff.
Go support black business.
And then share it. Go support black business. And
tell your racist family to fuck off.
Yeah.
Do the work.
Yeah.
I'm just
not
saying.
that I have any racist family.
I mean, just because we have blood, we don't have that family, bitch.
Right. All right, well, so that brings us to the end of yet another pod. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, like, share, subscribe, do all the things. Find us on any podcasting app. And then send us your thoughts and your stories and your questions and whatever.
And your favorite people from history.
Yeah. And send them to itwouldseemasthough@gmail.com, and we will read your stuff, and we'll probably read it on the air because we like it and it's fun.
Because live, coming to you.
Right. Not live, but, whatever. Yeah. So, with that all said, we'll be here next week.
Bye.
It would seem as though